Hello, and welcome to the first ever episode of Ask the Candidates, a special series highlighting the candidates running for election for the Society of American Archivists. My name is Stacie Williams, and I'm the chair of the 2018 Nominating Committee. For the 2018 SAA election, we asked SAA members to submit their questions for this year's Vice President and President-elect candidates. The nominating committee reviewed and selected a few of those questions to pose to the candidates. I'm with Michelle Light now to ask the candidate.
Hello, again, this is Michelle Light. I am the Director of Special Collections and Archives at the University of Nevada at Las Vegas, and I am running for Vice President, President-elect of SAA. Thank you so much for interviewing me today.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Michelle. Let's get started with the first question. In your past service in SAA, how have you fostered collaboration? And for example, this might be between appointed groups or sections, within those groups, or in other leadership positions.
When I served on council, I was the liaison to several sections and appointed groups, and I saw myself as a key communications bridge between these groups and council. I tried to keep tabs on what each group was doing, listening in broadly, so I could connect groups that might benefit from talking to each other, either to collaborate or to learn from each other's experiences for projects they were going to try out. I also tried to share information tailored to each group about what else was going on in SAA so that they might find connections between groups that I might have missed. I had some small successes, mostly in terms of bringing people together who were doing similar work to propose sessions at the annual meeting or directing them to contact individuals in other sections. But I've worked a lot with the Publications Board and before that with the American Archivist Editorial Board. So when Council was working on the last strategic plan, I tried to represent their contributions specifically to advancing knowledge in the profession within the strategic plan. So it would create a framework to make it more possible for groups to collaborate and work towards common goals. As our field grows more and complex and diverse, I think it's very tempting for us to find our own small community of interest and create more and more specialized groups that can address our needs. The new rules on sections in SAA make it easier to form these really specialized communities within SAA. And I think that's one of the great things about SAA, that it helps us find our people. It helps us find and build our community. But as much as we want to encourage groups to form around their own specialized or unique needs, we also need to make sure that we provide a way to bring everyone back together so they can work towards common goals. I really like what I saw Council doing recently to offer a pilot program to give sections $250 a year. I'm hoping that this incentive will strengthen the kinds of activities and programs that sections do. And mostly, I'm hoping that that will help sections see the benefit of combining resources and collaborating so that can help them expand what they do together.
Great. Thank you so much, Michelle. Next question. How will you support the value of professional archivists and ensure the survival of historical records in this area of community archives and really engaged memory workers?
So I've been rereading Jerry Ham's writings lately from about 40 years ago. And even back then, he saw the opportunity to supporting the development of these new archival programs. He wrote about how important it is for archivists to collaborate and cooperate, and especially for professional archivists in well-established institutions to not focus so much on their custodial roles, but to provide services and help for less developed or less resourced or maybe more amateur programs. He emphasized how important it is for archivists to do outreach and get involved somehow in the decisions that are being made about our historical record conceived broadly, no matter where those records are kept or how they're kept. So I keep coming back to his ideas because they make more and more sense to me now as I'm working with more community archives. I'm really inspired right now by the more recent work of Andrew Flynn, who has studied community archives, especially in the UK. And his research shows that community archives, they form for a variety of reasons, but there's also great diversity in what kind of relationships or support these community archives want from mainstream archival institutions. So he argues that it's essential for professional archivists to reach out, to negotiate, and to find ways to work together with community archivists. And what I take away from him is that if we are really committed as a profession, as archivists, to diversifying the archival record, then we need to find ways to partner and help community archives, where in many cases, these community archives represent underdocumented or marginalized perspectives, but we need to work with them to help ensure that these voices survive for our historical record. In my own personal experience, I believe community archives and engaged non-professionals are assets for both our professional goals and for our social responsibilities as archivists. Working together, I think we can accomplish so much more to identify, to preserve, and promote archives that might otherwise be endangered. So I guess in answering the question, I'm a little bothered by how it's worded. The question seems to imply that community archives and engaged non-professionals are problems that might diminish our value or might threaten our survival, and I couldn't disagree more with that. The existence of community archivists offer us great opportunity to expand our impact and strengthen the communities where we live and work. I believe we should see them as key partners in our shared mission to preserve a diverse human heritage. Every group is different, every community is different, but professional archivists should be skilled in finding ways to collaborate and partner with community archives and community archivists. For me, the service orientation is key to our future and our success.
Thank you so much, Michelle. So our next question. I believe it's our responsibility to educate history-minded young people on the professional opportunities available in archives. How might you work to improve the visibility of the profession in secondary schools and university undergraduate programs?
The history focus in this question is interesting to me. Because it points to a shift in our profession. 30 years ago, most archivists probably had a background in history, probably an advanced degree, but today we see professional archivists with many kinds of backgrounds entering the profession, not just history. There's been a particular shift with new professionals having advanced degrees in library and information science. So for me, this changing perspective from the next generation or the new generation of archivists is essential and important, especially because we're all managing digital records and networked environments. We need different kinds of background to be successful in those situations. So while I hope new archivists will have an appreciation for the context of records, like how and why they're created, how and why they might be used or valued, being history-minded isn't the only thing that I think makes for a good professional archivist or a good potential archivist in the future. For the past few decades, SAA has been more concerned with how to diversify the profession, with how to recruit more diverse individuals into the profession. And for me, that is an essential area of activity where I'm more likely to focus. How do we recruit and retain a more diverse workforce? if I remember the study correctly, even when we've been successful in getting archivists from underrepresented communities into the profession, they don't always stay in the profession. So I'm interested in understanding this better and looking for strategies to help with retention in addition to recruitment. But I think this question is also getting to the importance of increasing the visibility of the profession. So being an archivist is more attractive to undergraduates or high school students, no matter what they think their major might be. COPA, the SAA's Committee on Public Awareness, is working on how to promote the value of archives and archivists in society. They have a blog and suggest activities, so I would encourage anyone interested in this topic to volunteer for COPA, follow the blog, make suggestions, or look to get involved in their sections on how they can raise the profile of the archival profession. Another way we might help prospective archivists decide whether or not this is the right profession for them is to collect more data, provide more accurate information about the profession and archivists, like where do archivists work, what's their educational background, what's their salary, basic information that will help people decide whether or not this is the right path for them. So I'm working on a task force right now that's examining how SAA might help with this data collection and analysis so that we could be more transparent about what the profession offers to potential archivists. So we'll see where that develops.
Great. And SAA has faced many challenges with the location of its annual meeting due to circumstances beyond its control after contracts have been signed. There have been labor disputes or political actions in some cases that have caused members to discuss the viability of certain locations. Knowing that canceling a contract could have long-ranging repercussions on SAA's financial situation and its ability to continue its programming, how might you lead a council discussion when there's pressure from members to stand in solidarity on an issue related to the values and ethics of SAA?
How would I lead a council discussion? I think that's what I'm going to focus on. Before going into a council meeting where I knew we would have to tackle a contentious issue like this, I would do a lot of prep work. My first impulse would be to share as much information as possible with membership about the stakes of such a decision. I would want to be very clear about the financial situation of SAA and what exactly the financial consequences of any decision to terminate a contract might be, so that members can understand what programs or services might get cut as a result of a decision. But this information sharing has to be a two-way street. I would expect council to also collect feedback from members about their thoughts and feelings about the decision, about any potential personal hardships or ethical issues. I would want a lot of information sharing first. As for leading the discussion itself in council, where the stakes are high and emotions are going to run high, I also think that one of the best places to start is months before in making sure that the group trusts each other. You have to lay the groundwork to make sure that people are coming together to discuss things in a respectful way. So you have to trust each other's good intentions and have some very explicit norms for how you talk to each other, how you disagree, how you approach consensus. To get a discussion started, I might try something a little different than just a discussion. I might first try to get all the facts out on the table in a non-threatening way, maybe by writing all the issues down on whiteboards around the room and categorizing them so we could all see what the stakes are. This might include the potential for harm or how certain groups might feel about a decision. Then I might suggest we start brainstorming solutions to what we see around the room without judging each other harshly, but just to get a bunch of ideas floated or a bunch of ideas on the table for what we might do. I also like to use parking lots in discussions like this so the group doesn't get sidetracked, but you also don't lose valid ideas or perspectives. And hopefully after going through this, Council could then analyze some of those solutions more critically. Sometimes it might be useful to take a straw poll and see where people stand on issues, ask where people might be willing to compromise. I'd also probably go around the room to make sure everyone has a chance to express themselves and make sure no one person will dominate the discussion. So I think what I'm trying to say is that knowing that Council would be heading into contentious territory, I would try to employ some group facilitation techniques so that we aren't all sitting around the table arguing unproductively. I'd use them flexibly, though, because sometimes situations call for them and sometimes they don't. But there are a variety of ways to approach a discussion like this so you could reach the best decision possible, a tough decision, but hopefully one that most people in the room could defend.
And that is all of our questions. Michelle, thank you so much for taking the time to answer these questions in our very first Ask the Candidates feature.
Oh, thank you for having me on air.
SAA members and listeners, ballots are open now. Please visit the SAA website to learn more about the candidates and cast your vote by Friday, April 6th. Links to SAA election information, including our Ask the Candidates interview with Pam Hackbart-Dean, are available in the description below. Vote now.